It's a Guy Jeans podcast.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Alan Probst. He's a trapper, and I wanted to have him on the podcast because I know absolutely nothing about trapping, and we're going to learn all about how to trap animals and snaring animals and stuff like that. He's also a former professional baseball player, and we're going to talk to him about that a little bit in his career and whatnot. His website is NorthAmericanTrapper.com if you want to check it out. He is an interesting guy in that he knows everything about trapping. So without further ado, here's Alan Probst. Alan, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm excited to have you on my podcast because I know absolutely nothing about trapping.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. I know you guys do a lot of different things across the board, and we'll see if we can help you in your process.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know, including myself, you know, what is trapping and why do you do it?
Well, I mean, I could waste the whole hour talking and answering just one question.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in a small town in north central Pennsylvania. You know, my father, my grandfather, my uncles, my whole family trapped. And you know, back then, my father was a school teacher, and his brothers worked in the steel mill. You know, here in Pennsylvania, steel was big. But, you know, red foxes, beaver, and a bunch of other things. I mean, you could really supplement your income with as high as the fur market was back then. So that was, you know, part of it when I was growing up. You know, oh wow, you know, that's, you know, you got $70 for a red fox. You know,
that's cool.
That's pushing $300 in today's,
you
know, inflationary scale. I mean, I can't imagine if red fox were $300. And you know, that controls the number of trap, which self personally, I don't trap for money. I never have trapped for money. The conservation aspect of it, I think a big misconception with all of the, you know, information that's been put out there over the years through, you know, PETA and a lot of anti-organizations is that, you know, trappers are just out there slinging traps in the ground and catching anything that comes by and, you know, maiming it and all these different things. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. It's tightly regulated, state by state. There's certain seasons. There's certain quotas at times. There's a lot of different things in that. Not only that, but the equipment has changed dramatically. It's light years ahead of what you would see. I mean, there hasn't been teeth allowed on traps for a century, and that's the trap image that everybody uses when they want to, you know, put us on blast or whatever. But there's so many different variables. But the one thing that I get out of it is the traditional aspect. And what goes along with that is just that one-on-one vibe with nature. It's that mountain manish self-survival, taking care of yourself, living off the land. There's just a combination of different things that goes into it. But the real quick answer is trapping is very regulated. It's very monitored. It gets you close to nature. It's a great outdoor activity. And not only you're having fun doing it, but you're also helping animal populations control themselves so Mother Nature doesn't have to put in disease factors to control it. And that's a big thing in today's society with the human expansion. There's less and less territory for animals, and they do need to be harvested, and they do need to, come out of the equation at times. But I don't know if I answered that way you wanted it.
No, it's awesome.
Very, very open-ended question that, like I said, I could have talked an hour on that one.
You know that, have you seen that show Alone?
Yeah, I actually had a friend that was on that show.
No way. You know, they often use snares in that to like capture like little rabbits and stuff.
Rabbits and things. Yep.
I don't understand how a snare works. Can you talk about that? Like explain how that you actually can snare an animal with whatever they're using?
Well, yeah. The snaring is probably the first form of trapping that was ever put into place. It's the easiest. It's the least physical exertion trapping that you can do. I actually, believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, but I actually bought Dakota line snares out of South Dakota a year ago because I believe in it as much as you can as a form of animal damage control and a lot of different things. But how a snare works is we use galvanized aircraft cable. Each snare is made differently, and that a lot of that has to do with the rules and regulations. It's a very regulated. I talked about regulations earlier, but it's a very regulated form of animal control, to where some states you're allowed this type of lock, other states you're allowed this type of lock. There's a bunch of different locks, and we use low pro locks, which is a self-relaxing lock, which is basically like a dog leash. The animal will pull and it tightens up, and then once they stop pulling, it loosens. There's also an animal damage control, and we call it an ADC washer lock, which is the same type of premise, but it's a washer lock that releases tension when the animal quits pulling. We do have specific locks that are actually designed to shut the animal down very quickly. But all in all, an average snare that we're producing for use out there is going to be in that 48 to 60 inches in length. Each one's going to come with a swivel on the end, which allows for the animal to have full range of motion and not entangle themselves. It's going to have a deer stop anywhere in that 2.5 to 4.5 inch range, depending on the state regulations, where if a deer accidentally gets in it, steps in or whatever, they can easily pull out of it, or a bigger game animal. They also, a lot of them come with what are considered breakaway devices, and that's a little J hook or an S hook that's attached to the lock that's actually attached to the snare. And then if you do accidentally catch a deer or a cow or something else, accidentally, they actually will pull, and it's most of them are in that 285 pound range, where any pull strength of that, once they pull, it actually breaks away and they just walk away.
Right.
So there are a lot of different things that are put in place that make it a very efficient way to catch animals, and also you can be very precise with them. But as you know, as a survival tool, it's a fantastic tool. As you mentioned Alone.
Yeah.
They're allowed, the way Alone's set up, they have a certain amount of tools and things that will help them survive out there. When they go, they have a list, and you can pick 10 off of that list. And if you notice, most of the people that go and they're allowed to snare, they take the snare, because that's a fantastic way of catching your food source. But it's a very simple method. You're going to make about a 4.5 inch loop for a rabbit, 3.5 inch loop for a squirrel. Coyote, would be in that 10 to 12 inch loop size. For fox, it'd be a 7-8 inch loop size. So once you understand the dynamics of it, you just find the animal sign, and hopefully they come by.
And so they just step in it, and then it like springs up and locks on their leg.
No, it's actually there's no stepping in it. They're not set on the ground.
Oh.
They're actually put in the trails, and they'll catch them around the neck, just like you would put a leash on a dog.
Oh, I see. So they got
And then when you catch them around the neck, if it's set properly in the right height and the right loop size. And as I said, most all states have regulations where you have that relaxing lock. And a lot of that has been through the work that's been done with a lot of the, hunters that have dogs. They don't want their dogs getting hurt. So they've worked together to put in place, if somebody's rabbit hunting and so their dog's running through the brush and they run into a snare, they just get caught and they're there and their owner comes and lets them out because of the relaxing lock. It doesn't shut them down.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. How'd your friend do on Alone?
She came in, I think she took fourth.
Wow. What was her reason for coming in?
Her reason for coming in was I think she just wanted to prove that she could do it. She's very determined and very, very knowledgeable about a lot of different aspects of the outdoors.
Yeah.
She was medically withdrawn. She had her circulation to her.
Yeah.
I think she was season 8. Yeah, Rosemore, season 8.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How long was she out there for?
Just shy of 40 days, I think.
That's crazy, huh?
Might have been over 40 days. I can't remember. It was around 40, 36, 35, 40, 43, somewhere. I can't remember exactly.
Where were they? Do you remember?
They were up on that native reservation in Canada. It was a full on island, or not island, but out on a strait. It was actually her season, if I'm not mistaken. They were in the highest density of grizzly bears anywhere in the world.
Oh, really?
If I'm not mistaken.
That's scary stuff, man.
Yeah, that's you can have all the lifelines you want and little yellow walkie-talkie, but that ain't gonna help you if a grizz decides he wants to have you.
Have you ever wanted to do that show?
I physically wouldn't be able to do that now. I'm too old to go do that.
Yeah.
But romantically, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think the key factor is to winning that show?
About 8 inches between your ears.
Right. It's for sure, huh? You got to mentally stay in, man.
Yeah, that 8 inches between your ears is what wins that show. You either think you can do it and you persevere, or you don't. But and staying healthy, obviously.
Oh yeah, and eating the right stuff. Oh my gosh, some of those people get sick, and I saw one dude eat eggs from a fish and he got all sick, and another dude ate a squirrel and got sick, and a lot of people get sick from eating.
It takes a special breed, that's for sure.
I saw one dude on there one year. He was I think there was a wolverine or something that came in and was eating his food, and he ended up eating him, eating the wolverine too.
Yep.
Pretty crazy.
Well, the guy who won the $1 million spent 100 days out there. I actually I can't remember his last name, Roland something. Yeah. I actually spoke at an event that he was the headline speaker at, and he was an interesting cat, and the best part I've ever seen, and I haven't watched them religiously, but I did get into that season or whatever it was, 5 or 6. I can't remember because, like I said, I haven't watched it religiously. But he was getting to the point where he needed some food, and it was 60 or 70 days in or something, somewhere in that range. And he come upon a porcupine. And he got that porcupine, and I remember him sitting there boiling that fat roast or whatever he had in the pot, and he took it up, and they filmed themselves, he bit into it, and the grease was running down all over. And I remember the funniest thing, he looked at the camera and he goes, "That's one greasy bastard." So, yeah, that part is probably the most memorable part of any of those shows.
So back to the trapping and the snares. Do you guys or have you used the snares for like coyotes, like to get rid of coyotes because there's so many of them, that sort of thing? Or
yeah, I mean, snares are used across the board in a lot of different aspects, not just for problem animals out in the wild or ranchers, farmers, ranchers, hunters alike. Especially some of them bigger ranches, they really have a serious problem with coyotes. Especially this time of year. I think you're right smack dab in the middle of sheep dropping right now, and that smell. I mean, these animals can smell from miles away when that little lamb hits the ground. There's a lot of placenta and a lot of other things that they do. It's just like a dinner bell. Snares are really good for the farmer, the rancher, the hunter, like I said, but across the board, if you've got a garden and you got rabbits and things in there, I mean, the garden's not only attractive to your food source, that's a ready-made, like, Disneyland for a wild animal. So, you talk about going to Vegas and getting a $2.99 buffet. I mean, that's basically what a garden is to a wild animal, and just a couple rabbits can ruin a whole garden. So we make what's called an easy set snare, which is made for like the most basic beginner. It's an all-in-one where you have the easy set wire attached, plus we construct the whole snare and it's attached to that wire, and it can be tied off to a tree, a fence post, a nail, a piece of wood, anything. You just find the trails where the animals are running, and it's no different than I think that the premise of trapping has really gotten a bad name over the last 30 to 40 years, people using it as a tool to basically speak half truths and get people and talk to people's heartstrings to raise money for no other reason than to pad their own pockets. And when you look at it, it's a tool. It's no different than catching a mouse that's chewing a hole in your carpet.
Sure.
And it's no different. It always cracks me up. Everybody will say, "Oh, don't hurt the animals," and they'll be sending their money to whatever organization they think is going to keep people from taking animals out of the equation. And as soon as they have one under their porch or in their attic, it's hypocrisy 101 at that point. Sure. They're literally, "You got to come get this thing out of here. It's gonna ruin my house." Well, how do you think the farmer feels or the rancher feels? It's just it's a tool, and when you can separate, if you can separate your emotion from your mind and logically evaluate the situation from a non-emotional standpoint, you can see that it's no different. But when you've got Sarah McLachlan singing a ballad on TV, and they literally take the worst video of the dogs, abused dogs and cats, and Humane Society's bringing in $150 million a year off of those tugging of the heartstrings. It's hard to really get that information out there because the people that are working the aspects of conservation, whatever, we don't have the funds to throw out there to try and get more funds. It's a science-based and ecologically and environmentally based mindset that, yes, it's a cruel kindness maybe for that animal, but for the whole population, it's going to help them survive and thrive even more. Right. And that's truly what conservation is. It's being able to step outside and understand that for the greater good of the species, we are doing what's necessary. And, not to get philosophical or go into another tangent, your whole existence, and it's not just humans, but your whole existence as a human being depends on something else dying. Mm-hmm. And then when you can finally get to that point and embrace that, like, well, yeah, we are the masters of our own domain, and our whole life is consistent with something else giving up their life. And it doesn't matter. You can think that you're doing a great thing eating tofu and just full vegetarian. How did that farmer plant that ground? Well, he tore up a 5,000 square acre ecosystem to plant your garden. And in essence, when he was plowing that ecosystem, every ground squirrel, groundhog, ground nesting bird, everything was just completely wiped out in its wake, just so somebody can go to the store and feel like they're doing something for the good. And it's mind-numbing to me for people not to be able to step outside the box and see that at times.
I just had a guy on my podcast that he hunts over in Texas, and he was telling me that the pig situation over there is out of hand.
It's out of control.
Yeah, and he runs a wild game butchery like package, where you can go and hunt these pigs and then learn how to butcher them and cook them and all that stuff. It was pretty cool. But
it's out of control. And it's not just Texas now. They're moving into areas in Missouri. They're into southern Illinois. They're in Kentucky. They're in Tennessee. I mean, they are a very, very destructive animal.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, for sure. So what's the hardest thing to trap? Hardest animal to trap?
The hardest animal to catch in my mind would be the last muskrat or last beaver in a colony.
Oh, okay.
They get really smart. Probably the last muskrat. And you can catch the last beaver. You can do things to can kind of control the water level, and beavers do not like, basically to a beaver, running water is nails on a chalkboard. Yeah. And you can do things to get that last beaver, but boy, I'll tell you, if you're in somewhere and you're trapping muskrats trying to get them out, that last muskrat is the hardest one to catch. As far as the way people look at things, I think coyote is probably placed at the top, where most people, that is their holy grail, being able to catch a coyote. And that comes down to that 8 inches between your ears as well.
They're super smart.
Psych themselves out. They psych themselves out. It's not that hard. If you do just a couple things, you can be very successful. But I would say coyote is the holy grail for most people that get into this and go afield to try and test their skill set, I guess.
Is scent come into play? Like when you're setting a trap, you have to descent everything so that they can't smell you on there? Do you have something you have to put on the traps or something?
To a certain extent, yes. You want to have clean traps. You want to have clean equipment, especially traps, because you don't want your traps to smell like rusted, steel or anything that's, foreign like that. As far as making it set to where a coyote isn't going to know that you were there, I don't think you could even do that in a hazmat suit. So I'm completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. There are people that made a lot of money over the years writing books on scent control, and you got to do this and you got to do that.
Right.
I played baseball for 10 years.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that.
And about half the team every year dip Copenhagen or some form of tobacco, and I to this day still do, and I sit constantly around my sets. I touched my I make my set with the gloves I touch my bait with. Scent is all relative to me. They're going to know you were there, so I do not worry about it one bit.
Okay.
I have no problems with animals shying away from most of my sets. Yes, you're going to get that occasional one that's smarter than the other, but you know what? That's fine. I'd much rather have that one not get caught by me, because that one's gonna put some good DNA in the next ones, which keeps that population. I do not ever go into an area. I don't care if it's coyotes, raccoons, nothing. I do not go in most all situations to try and catch every critter there. I am not doing this for an ego to have a barn picture at the end of the year. I do it for education. I do it for people to some of the best, well, not just all of the best memories of my life are with my father and my grandfather and my son and all those different things, going one-on-one out there trapping. So the simple answer is I don't worry about scent control. There are going to be a tremendous number of people throughout this community that are going to tell you I'm out of my mind, and that's just not the case. Though I have proven that you do not need to worry about scent. And if you want to try and peddle a $5 item or a $10 item that's gonna is it gonna hurt you? No, I don't think they're wrong in that the less scent the better, but I don't think it's something that ultimately determines whether you catch that animal or not.
So real quick, you mentioned baseball. I wanted to touch on that real quick. Tell me about your baseball career.
I spent 10 years. I played professionally for 10 years. I got, my whole goal growing up was I wanted to be a professional baseball player. I achieved that. I spent 10 years in the Mets, the Astros, and the Blue Jays organizations.
Nice.
I was a catcher.
All right.
I had a pretty long run at it, more than most. I just, I don't talk about it much, but when somebody brings it up or it's brought up in a way that it makes sense, it brings back a lot of memories. It was a great part of it. I spent my whole 20s, from 21 to 31, playing a game. Playing a kid's game and getting paid for it. I don't know how much better it can get than
That's so cool, man. And not that many people can say that, It's really neat.
It doesn't get much better than that. It was a great life.
What was it like going up to against an incredible pitcher? Like when you're up at bat, did you sometimes go, "Oh my God, this guy is just insanely good. I hope I can even hit the ball."
There were guys that stood out. That comes down to that 8 inches between your ears again. It's no different than anything else. There were many a times I thought, "Oh man, don't swing and miss here. Don't strike out. Guy on third, less than 2 outs. You got to get the run in. Make contact. The next thing you know, you're back on the pine. You struck out because mentally you weren't ready. And then there were other times you go to the plate and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to get it done. Let's go." And you're in that mode, and next thing you know, you're walking off the field and you're the hero. So, I guess, I spent most of my last 6 years in AAA. I went to 4 big league camps. I was just never in that best. I was with the Mets. Mike Piazza was the starting catcher in the big leagues. You're not going to. Sure. He's the best hitting catcher of all time. When I was with the Astros, Brad Osmus was the catcher. He's probably the best defensive catcher ever. I just was never in that right place, right time. Nobody ever got hurt above me. So I basically spent, my career, the latter part of my career in AAA, just working and staying, doing what I needed to do. So if the opportunity came to, get that opportunity to play every day up there. But I did play against some great players.
Sure.
I don't really sit and say my claim to fame or anything like that, but I took John Smoltz deep in a game in '99 or whatever on one of his rehab starts, his last rehab start. I think it's the only run we gave up. I was a little late. I was even late on a 3-1 fastball. I hit it out to right field, and I threw out Deion Sanders trying to steal second, so that was kind of cool.
That's way cool.
I think back. I think he might have been safe. I don't know if the umpire just wrote him up because it was Deion, but I mean, I caught Billy Wagner. I don't know if you know who Billy Wagner is.
Yeah.
The left-handed pitcher. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he'll get in next year, but. I caught his first professional game, and Alex Rodriguez's first professional game was the same one, coming up through the minors. So,
nice.
I mean, I've played with tons of people. Like the locker room when I went to big league camp with the Mets in 2000, that locker room, I don't know, was there 4 Hall of Famers in there? Ricky Henderson, Mike Piazza, John Franco's in the Hall too. I can't remember, but that team was just nothing but superstars.
Yeah.
Todd Zeal, Robin Ventura, Al Leiter. I mean, that team was insane. And obviously they went to the World Series that year. So
what are you?
Yeah, it was a great life. Great 10 years.
Are you still following baseball like crazy still?
No, I don't watch it at all.
Yeah.
They've, in my mind, they've completely bastardized the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they, they make the bases bigger. They got a pitch clock. You spent $200 with your family to go watch a baseball game. The last thing you're thinking about is, we got to make sure the game's under 3 hours. I don't understand what's going on. I'm sure it's above my pay grade and has something to do with money, but I don't watch much at all. My father passed away last year, and he kind of kept me even interested in it by, asking questions. He's a big time Philly fan, but I just don't watch much of it anymore.
It's I went to see the Dodgers play last year, and I couldn't believe the price of the tickets, man. It's crazy. And also, and it was probably like the best, $20 beer I've ever tasted.
$20 for a beer, isn't that crazy?
It's crazy, man. I was like,
you can get down to the store and buy a 12-pack for that.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about your website and stuff. Are you selling stuff on there, like packages and things for folks?
That's basically what we do. We do the national TV show. That's a driving force to run people to the website.
That's
we have packages.
That's North American Trapper. That's the show.
Yep, North American Trapper.
Okay.
Our YouTube channel is basically set up nothing but a tool that somebody can use for learning. And we cover a multitude of different aspects on there, and that's North American Trapper on YouTube. But the website, we have packages that are set up, specifically for beginners. That's our whole premise.
Nice.
And it's set up for beginners. It's whether you get the coyote kit or the raccoon package or the beaver package or whatever, it's set up that you get everything you need. You get the traps, the lures, the baits, the stakes, the hammer, the trowel, the driver, everything that's needed, and we throw a DVD in there to show you how to do it if you want to follow our methods. Our methods are what helps us be successful. We by no means I can't remember one time I've ever told anybody you have to do it this way. Now, there are a couple nuances that you have to do, but there are so many different ways. It always cracks me up online. I call it the keyboard warrior. You get all these keyboard warriors probably sitting in their underwear with a bowl of mac and cheese on their gut, sitting there,
classic,
saying, well, you got to do it this way and that way. And, the kid or something will put, hey, I caught this coyote. You can tell by the caption or wherever, he's just happy as all get out.
You bet, yeah.
What do you think of this? What do you think of this? I had this set here by this log, and it never fails. There'll be one or two, idiots that'll be, well, you shouldn't have set that close to the log, or you should have done this. And I look at it and I'm like, the coyote is in the trap. Right. What can you? I mean, you just can't make it up. The idiocy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's trapping. It could be hunting. It could be fishing.
Oh,
it could
for
be,
sure.
Gardening. It could be, sewing. It could be anything. There's always going to be those people that are either jealous or disgruntled, or I don't know.
Yeah.
They just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, but boy, they will keyboard warrior to death. Online, man.
I've experienced those myself. Yeah, I had a fishing forum for years and years, and my whole thing was to get kids into the sport, and these kids would be all stoked and catching fish and whatnot, and these guys would get on there and say, "Oh, you shouldn't hold the fish that way," or whatever it was, and the kids just totally turned off by it, and
the guy that was typing it looks like, when he goes fishing, he looks like he stepped out of an Orvis catalog.
Right.
Well, I got my $900 rod. Let me tell you something, I'd go catch more fish with a Zebco.
Right. Yep. So your website is NorthAmericanTrapper.com, and then you also
NorthAmericanTrapper.com. That's basically everything that we do, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, the website. Everything is North American Trapper. NorthAmericanTrapper.com is our website.
Awesome. Well, Alan, I learned a lot, man. Thanks for being on my podcast.
Absolutely. I hope that I hope you get out there. Now, you're in California, right?
Yep, I am. Yep.
Yeah, none of this, what we talked about, is legal in California, though.
Oh, is it? It's not?
No.
That's all right.
California, you're not allowed to do any of this. You're not allowed to snare. You're not allowed to trap. I didn't even know they passed the law. You're not even allowed to sell fur either. So
yeah, there's all kinds of
you guys
different
have
things
been
going on.
Shut down for years. There's a few states out there, for those people that are listening, like, I think I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Well, if you live in California or Colorado or New Mexico,
no trapping.
Don't be going out trying this. And if you live in New Jersey, Massachusetts, Washington, Oregon, check your local laws, because a lot of those places you're only allowed to use traps that are underwater, and so that's the one thing I would mention to everybody out there. Don't just go out and do something, because what that does is that hurts the not only the community of this heritage, but it also isn't fair to the animal as well. That's the one thing that I'll end with here.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is the sportsmanship of it as well, and being able to go out there and go one-on-one and match wits with a coyote, or match wits with a raccoon, or whatever you're going after. You have to be fair to your quarry as well. So, keep that in mind. We
Absolutely.
don't do things that are detrimental to the species that we're ultimately trying to enhance. So that's something that everybody should always keep in mind when they're going out there, and definitely check your laws and regs, because they are different and they vary from state to state, but they're very easy to find. Just get on your state's Department of Conservation or Game Commission or whatever website where you would buy licenses and stuff, and I'm sure they're going to have a full dissertation on what's legal and what's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. My podcast is everything, hunting, fishing, comedians, UFC fighters, to whoever. And it's just, I'm always learning. That's the main thing about my podcast, is to learn about stuff that I don't know. And I learned a lot. I really appreciate you being on my podcast, Alan. And,
I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome, buddy. All right. Well, talk to you later, man.
All right. You guys have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's a Guy Jeans podcast.